Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. Look, we keep finding awesome people, bring them onto the podcast. We keep outdoing ourselves. Our guest today is no exception. Toni Will is the general manager of the Kalamazoo Wings, and she is definitely a minority in that she is a female running a professional sports team. In addition to that, she is a keynote speaker. She coaches people individually. She set up several platforms to both teach and empower women leaders. She's got a platform called Empower Her, where she does seminars in Kalamazoo, Michigan. She's written a book, and she's going to talk about that. And you're going to love Toni. She's high energy. She's a great speaker. She's got a ton of charisma. She's got super valuable lessons that she can teach you. So without further ado, let's bring Toni onto the podcast now. Toni, thank you so much for joining me here at Salty Ginger Talk.
I am so thrilled to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
So I'm excited for multiple reasons on this. One is because you have, and I'm sure you like it, but I'm sure you don't think it's as cool as I do. But you have an awesome job because I am such a huge hockey fan, and
Yep.
you are the general manager for a hockey organization, and so you not only run the 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 sports side of things, but the facility and all the other things that go with it. And I have a little bit of sense for what goes with that. And you may have a general manager that runs some of the stuff, but
Yeah.
like I know how involved you are in
hmm
everything just because I had a son that worked for Delaware North.
Mm.
And I'm sure you're familiar with them, and their family owns the Bruins. The Jacobs family, the family that owns Delaware North, the majority stake of it. But anyhow, love that world. But you've got a lot of awesome things to teach our audience as well, because yours is a path that is like the exact thing that we try to preach on Salty Ginger Talk, and that is find something that means something to you and go after it. Start taking action. You don't know where that action is going to lead you to. It can lead you down all sorts of roads that you may not have known existed. And
hmm
yours is a perfect example of that. And I think when I talk about hockey, I would be shocked if most people's minds don't instantly leap to men. And you are clearly not a man.
I'm
And
not.
so you've got all sorts of good things to teach people about how to fight your way through things that aren't necessarily fair, that aren't necessarily right, that don't necessarily benefit you, but you shouldn't let it stop you from going after what you want. So, a little preview for our audience here of some of the things and lessons that you're going to get exposed to tonight. The way we usually do this is to have you talk about your life and
Mhm.
say, here's where I started, here's where I got to, and here's what I learned along the way. Tends to work best if you do it at kind of a high level, and then we go back and spend a lot of time on the stuff that really matters to you. But you get to drive because it's your life. And
Yeah.
so I talk a lot right now, and then I don't talk very much from here on out. So with that, the floor is yours, my friend. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So that was a beautiful intro. Toni Will. And yeah, just 8 letters to my name, but there's a lot packed into those 8 letters. Let me tell you. So yeah, I'll take you back. I mean, my career in and of itself has had 3 different phases. And the pro sports side of my life gets a lot of attention. And it gets a lot of attention because sports is sexy. Um, Everyone can relate to sports in one way, shape, or form. And then it gets a lot of extra attention because I'm the general manager of a men's professional hockey team as a woman. And so there's that extra little, I get it, it's the furrowing of the brow, like, and people will ask me, and I'm not, this is a real story. Someone will say, they'll say, how did you get that job? Or I get, are you the mom of the players? Which always makes me chuckle, depending on who's asking me. I'll step back and explain that story because in there's a lot of lessons just in that story alone because I did not set out for this job at all. I started my career 25 years ago. I graduated from Western Michigan University. I'm born and raised here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I never left. That wasn't my intent. I don't know what my intent was, but I didn't think I'd stay here. Um, but I also wasn't clamoring to just get out either. So my career started in banking. I was, 22 years old with a degree in business management. And I thought, well, by gum, I should be managing people if I
Hmm.
have a degree in business management. And what's funny is I was able to convince the powers that be that that was the case. And so I've always had a lot of fire in my belly, a lot of drive, a lot of passion for whatever I'm committed to. And I started managing, it was Old Kent back in the day, the bank, and worked my way up and took that team through a bank merger to Fifth Third, and then made the leap over to National City and was a branch manager there, took a leap over or that merger over to PNC. And I often joke that bank mergers are like childbirth. When you do one and you're like, that was painful, I'm not doing it again, and then you forget. And I took another team through it. And what kind of came out of that, and that was all in my 20s. And I talk about that part of my career because I didn't know it then, but what a great space to cut your teeth in as a leader and a salesperson and a trainer because you're dealing with people's finances. And I would argue that behind healthcare, it is the second most sensitive topic to talk to people about. And so I'm in this space where I'm looking at credit scores and helping people with home equity loans and checking accounts and overdrafts and like all this stuff. And you have access to all these things. And I'm learning this as a sales professional and then teaching my staff how to sell relationship based and handle tough situations. So I was really cultivating this great, I was a very young leader, very driven, but in a great space. And then I I get antsy. And as you and I have talked more, and you and I talked off air before, but I tend to like change and like to do challenging things, and I get bored pretty easily. And so I was involved at a community level, and this is some advice I give to a lot of up and comers in whatever industry they're in. I got really involved with the Chamber of Commerce and learning in my community. Like I want to be mentored. I was thirsty for knowledge and information. I wanted to know what the successful middle-aged people did to get to where they were at.
Hmm.
And so I joined programs in my community to learn these things. And at that time, the Economic Development Agency was absorbing our Chamber of Commerce here in Kalamazoo. And the chamber was a 100-year-old organization. And they said to me, we're looking for someone to help rebuild the efforts for the chamber. And the chamber, for anyone who doesn't know, is all about building small business in a community, helping for public policy, create jobs, and networking, depending on how the community runs that. So that's what this chamber was doing. I loved what I did externally with businesses, helping them grow and ribbon cuttings and turning of the dirt and things of that nature, but that inside the organization was very toxic. And I experienced sexual harassment at that job. I didn't know what to do. And so I just put my head down like a good Gen Xer does. I put my head down and I say 2 years. For whatever reason, we Gen Xers think at least 2 years. And so I made it 20 months. And and then one day I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I let up. I went to the CEO and I just said I wasn't happy. I'll spare all the gory details, but we parted ways shortly thereafter. So there I was in my mid 30s, three kids, a husband, a mortgage, and I did not have a money tree in my backyard or my front yard. So you're all probably wondering, where is this long-winded story going in sports? So this is where it gets interesting. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I've always had this fear holding me back. That's just been hardwired in me. I'm not sure where it comes from because my dad was an entrepreneur and he did really well, but I just couldn't pull that trigger and I wasn't sure what I would do with it. So I applied for jobs, and one of the jobs I applied for was this high-end fashion boutique, as high-end as you can get in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I used to shop there only on sale, and it's inside our Marquee Hotel downtown Kalamazoo. And HR calls me and they said, Toni, we see that you applied for this job. And I said, yeah. And they said, you're way overqualified. I said, I know. And they said, you'll be bored. And I said, that's okay. I want to be bored. I don't want to be the face of anything. I don't want to take on extra responsibility. My kids are younger. I want to take a step back. And once they're graduated, I'll, put my foot back on the accelerator. And they were like, no, we're a talent-based organization. That's not how we hire. We want to find the right place for you because we want you to stay. And I respected that. So I said, okay. So 3 weeks later, they call me back. Toni, we've got a job for you. I said, okay, what's that? They said, the Kalamazoo Wings. The hockey team? And she goes, yeah. And I go, and this is verbatim, this conversation. I go, they're still around? And literally, she laughed. And I said, I'm not trying to be funny. And she goes, no, they are. And she goes, that's the problem. We need someone that is going to go in there and change everything. And I said, I don't know shit about hockey. I literally said that. And she's like, that's not how it works at this level. And I said, what level? Because I wasn't looking for, she goes, well, it's a tiered system, it's developmental. And to be candid, she didn't know a hell of a lot about hockey either. But this privately owned hospitality company that owns a hotel, restaurants, retail also owns the Kalamazoo Wings. And so they saw this talent in me, and we know how the story ends because you and I are sitting here today. But I said yes. I took a 35% pay cut from where I was at because my mission over money has always been my kind of path. I believe that if I love what I do, the money will follow. And it has. And so I said yes to the best job I never knew I wanted. And here I am over 11 years later. And I did not know when I walked in those doors, A, what I was in for, and B, that my gender would, as a white woman, I did not think I'd be the minority really in anything until I started working in men's pro hockey.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I love that. So let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about your banking work. Going through two mergers as a leader of teams requires a lot of change management and expectation management. Talk a little about what you learned about change and expectation management through those processes when you were with the bank.
Yeah, it was. And I think, and this is such an insightful question because I think this is what's allowed me as a human being to have a growth mindset because this is where I cut my teeth. I didn't know, like, I'm like, okay, a bank merger, we're going to change. It is fair, as I alluded to or said directly, it is hard to get groupthink and buy-in around, we're going to close as Old Kent or National City and open up the next day as a new bank. One of these things that both these organizations did really well is these mergers were uh, anywhere from 18 months to 2 years.
Mm.
So it was a very long runway for both, which allowed for an extensive amount of training. And then me at the head of both of the branches I was operating at the respective times to really create that enthusiasm and positive attitude for the buy-in. This is good because, and really learn the core values of both banks and what they offered, and both still in this community to this day, Fifth Third and PNC, and many communities for people who are listening, no matter where they're at. But they're well run banks and reputable. And it wasn't hard for me as a leader to say, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And so I was able to train my team that way because I really felt that. And one of my core values is authenticity. I am not the type of leader that's going to blow smoke up anyone's ass.
Yep.
So I'm like, and that's where I get a lot of respect is like, I'm just Toni. So whether you and I are talking right now, Joe, or if we run into each other at the grocery store or at the doctor's office or at a hockey game, I'm going to be the same person, or whether I'm someone's boss and leading the team. And that fosters trust. And that was really important no matter what organization I'm leading.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful, and I couldn't agree with you more. People can tell when you're being fake and trying to sell them on, like they can pick up on it very quickly, and it rarely works. Even if it does work, they tend to regret it or second guess it. You're better off just being who you are. And that's going to be good enough for most people, and it's not going to be good enough for some people. And the one that it's not, you can't win them over anyways. Like it is what it is. You don't control how people react to you. Now, you can learn, I think you can learn how to be yourself in more palatable ways. And so like I've worked on that over
Mhm.
the years because I was tragically or happily born without the give a fuck gene. Like I don't give a fuck most of the time what people think about me. And I was that way as a kid, even, which is really rare. And don't get me wrong, like I've been married to my wife for 33 years. She's a really good looking lady, but she's a way better person than she is physically attractive. I wanted girls like that to like me, like that mattered to me, but I wasn't going to be someone I was not to attract them. And so I
Right.
was going to find one that liked me. I always think about the Sawyer Brown song, Some Girls Do. Some girls don't like boys like me, but some girls do. I'm going to go hang out with the ones that do, you know? Um, and so that authenticity, I think, is super important. And when you think about a merger, I brought that up because I've been through several of those integrations or onboardings or whatever you want to call them. And I was mostly in the role of the acquirer, not the group that was being acquired. But people are really, really nervous in those situations. They think, well, fuck, what about my pay? What about my benefits? What about my schedule? Is there seniority issues? And are they going to bring in their own people and displace us? And so you've got to try to manage all of that and effectively keep the business running while making sure people understand here's what the real world impacts could or probably won't be for you. And there's a lot to that. So, like, that's a real proving ground for leadership. You're actually pretty fortunate to have been in those situations, you know?
I really am. And there's one other side to this, especially in banking. There's the internal culture, but then there's all the customers
Yeah.
because there is equal. I mean, we got their money and it's like, now it's FDIC insured, and the bank did that, they've done this a few times. So they knew how to communicate, but it was that, and there's a lesson in the long runway thought process. Like if a bank merger happened in like 30, 60, 90 days, be worried because something's going to go wrong.
Be worried. I love it.
Be worried. But
Isn't that the
this,
truth?
yeah, but this was they did it, for what I knew back then, the right way. It's the only way I knew. And it kind of goes back to I alluded to this earlier, talked about it, this gut instinct I had, like when I have stepped into careers where stuff wasn't right and trusting that and trusting, when you've worked for a good organization or great leadership versus not. And so it proved to be like you said, a good place for me to come of age.
Yeah, totally. Totally love that. So let's just fast forward a little bit to your time at the Chamber of Commerce. What were you marketing? Were you sales? Were you trying to get new businesses in? What did you do at the Chamber of Commerce?
The whole thing. So there was really just two of us, and sometimes three when they took this. So the chamber in Kalamazoo was 100 years old, and it was a nonprofit. And for whatever reason, I can't recall the reason, it was just decided that it was going to come sit inside the Economic Development Organization, which sounds like a bank name, but isn't, which is Southwest Michigan First. And so there's a lot of political power behind that name in our community. The board of directors is the creme de la creme. Like these are the people who care about creating jobs and a vibrant downtown in Kalamazoo. And
These are the
so
movers and shakers of Kalamazoo, right?
there are. And if
Yeah.
anyone Googles Kalamazoo, you're going to see a few names pop up in there, and they are movers and shakers, not only in Kalamazoo, but around the world.
Yeah.
So, and we're proud of that because they're amazing individuals. Yeah, so so the chambers coming inside, they asked me to help all the things that you mentioned: marketing, drive membership, build relationships, train, like networking. Networking comes very naturally to me, like creating those events and bringing people together and just basic. I mean, we almost started from scratch, but with a cooler, hipper, non-100-year-old crusty vibe.
Yep. So you had mentioned during this period you had experienced some sexual harassment. Are you willing to talk about? I'd love to hear about that at whatever level you're willing to talk about it, because I think there's a lot of people out there who may be going through something similar and might be able to learn something from how you dealt with it and how you processed it and how you got through it.
Yeah, so I will say this, and we haven't talked about this part yet, but I do write about it in my book that's coming out this summer. And just for anyone curious about the book writing process when it comes to talking about stuff like this publicly, I'm not going to use his name today, but because this individual um, got caught for doing the same thing at
Mm,
another job, it was put in our local media. and proven, and in that sense, not from me, but from another woman. I'm able to talk about it in my book and publicly. So, but I still won't say his name just because he's gross. Anyway, so
I'm looking for the lesson, not the details. I know a lot of podcasts run on
yeah.
like clickbait and sordid stuff. That's not how we operate. You can say whatever you want on our podcast, which you know. I don't
Yeah.
want to pressure you is my whole point.
Yeah.
So
No, 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 I get
please
that.
continue.
So it was the second day on the job, and I was still I knew I was really, I guess, good at what I did in banking, but I didn't understand what it was about me that uh, what he saw in me to offer me this really amazing opportunity. And I mean, I was in my early 30s, so it wasn't like I was fully like fresh out of college. I just didn't fall off the turnip truck, but I also was young in my career.
Mm,
And so I didn't know what he particularly saw because we never worked together in banking. It was a newer relationship formed through these mentor-mentee programs I was a part of and community involvement efforts. And so I wasn't quite sure what it was. And so I asked, I said, "So what was it in me of all people that you saw and why you wanted to hire me?" And he looked at me and he said this: "I wanted to have someone to have fun with." And
wow.
it wasn't like, like, I want to go have fun today. You know what like you say it to.
Yeah, like hey, let's go golfing. Let's go
Yeah.
down to the beach and build sandcastles.
Yeah, it was that. And the way you responded is I knew on date, I was like, fuck,
Right. I think that's appropriate. I think that's exactly the right response.
fuck. And literally and my stomach dropped and I'm
Oh,
like, oh my God. Because what I left, I had worked my way up at PNC to a regional level.
yeah.
So no longer was I just operating the branches, but I was all over several regions helping with sales and service. And like I was on my way.
Yeah,
And
you're on a good track, right?
I
I
was
got
on an
yep.
amazing track and I loved what I did. And so it was a giant leap for me to do this. And my stomach dropped and I'm like, how am I going to tell my husband this? And I didn't at first because I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, I can figure this out. But there was no figuring it out with someone like him
Mm.
because this is what he did. And I know this now, all these years later, and I watched it unfold several times, even in the short time I was there, and then of course after when it happened, when he changed jobs. And unfortunate for him, he went to work for a university here, and they don't tolerate anything like that.
Oh,
So
good Lord. Yeah, that's the exact wrong environment to be a
yeah,
creeper. Yeah.
yeah. So in addition to that happening, the CEO, like this guy was the CEO's like right hand.
Yeah.
And our CEO, how do I mean, you heard the phrase toxic masculinity is tossed around a lot, and but this guy was a narcissist, and our CEO was, I mean, he's no longer there, but he was just a shitty human being on top of like these two were just, it was bad. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of, I've just set my career on fire. And because it was such a well-respected organization, our community, I'm like, how do I leave without burning my career down?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
So
you got all the leaders in the community there too, right? Like, what a shitty position to be in.
it was very shitty. And I had the same feeling that a lot of women feel like no one's going to believe me. No one's going to believe me. He's married, he's got kids, he's charismatic, charming. Everyone loves him. I remember I was getting to the point where I confided in one of my friends, and she happened to drink too much that one night, and which shockingly at that point I didn't. I don't know what, that was a whole other part of my life, but I happened to be sober,
We'll,
sober-ish.
we'll get, I appreciate
Yeah,
that. We'll get to it down the
we'll
road, but
get. But she said to me in a drunken stupor, she's like, "Yeah, I don't believe you." So that's how charismatic he was.
yeah.
That's how the charm and so I didn't know what to do. So like I said earlier in the beginning, the good old Gen Xer in me said 2 years, 2 years. And I started looking and it just got harder and harder and harder. And I'm a rebel. And just one day I was like, I can't do this anymore. Between the toxic CEO and the sexual harassment, this is not a healthy environment for me. And what they did in this organization, they no longer do it because all the leadership has changed. They would overpay so people would be afraid to leave because,
Mm,
and that was a strategy. The CEO would say that we overpay so people won't leave.
the golden handcuffs. Love the golden handcuffs.
And this girl double birded it and was like, I'm out of here. Now, I look back on her and I think, wow, you got some balls because I didn't know what was in front of me. I didn't know. I mean, I was leaving this organization and it was a I say a mutual parting ways, but we all know what that means.
Yeah.
A lawyer got involved and I signed whatever I signed. I had 4 months severance and I had just enough. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll just figure it out, which that statement has been the through line of my entire life. I'll just figure it out. I'm always willing to bet on myself. And every time I bet on myself, when the chips are down or when they're up, I come out the other side okay. So I just bet on myself, and that's where it ended.
Man, I love it. So on the on the toxic masculinity, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I label it differently. So I just call them douchebags. There's douchebags out there.
Mhm.
I don't, the problem I have with it is I don't want to associate masculinity with behaviors that aren't in any way masculine. So
Yeah.
picking on someone that's less powerful than you or less physically capable than you is not masculine. You're
Mhm.
a gigantic pussy if you do those things. Like if you want to be tough, come fight me. That's what I always say. I'm 6'3" and I'm less fun to deal with than I look like. Like I got the Irish blood me. I'm also a Gen Xer, so I don't know how to quit. And like you might get me, but you're going to leave with a couple chunks out of you. If you want to be tough, that's tough. So I always try to reframe toxic masculinity into douchebags, and there's lots of douchebags out there.
Yeah.
And another one more thing, I just want to encourage everybody. So you heard Toni say her own fucking friend said she didn't believe her. I would investigate anything sexually related to men before you discount it because there's no telling what people are into sexually. I know people who are upstanding members of the community, do a great job, love their family, but they've got this little thing over here, and it's really hard to tell with men in particular. They have
Yeah.
weird fucking things that like drag them over here and things that turn them on and they're attracted to. So before you go dismissing someone, I'm not saying accuse them. I'm not saying convict them. I'm not saying, and I'm also not saying believe all women because there's women that lie about this shit. Like
100%.
there's shades of gray in there, but don't be so quick to dismiss kind of strange sexual stuff, especially like propositions and sexual harassment and those kind of things, because people can be people can be weird. I had the opposite. I actually had a contentious. I got fired, and the only time in my life I've ever been fired. And there were some things go. I got fired for some reasons that were just wrong, and so it turned into just like lawyers got involved and blah blah blah. But one of the things they did, I ran a pretty big department, and they went to like all the women in my department and said, was Joe ever inappropriate with you?" And it was funny because the women actually called me. They said, "You won't believe this." They called me and asked if you were inappropriate, and they were like, "Joe Canfield, that guy's like kind of gay. He's so married to his wife, he's not a threat to anybody. Like he's totally in love with his wife. He doesn't have any interest in anyone that's not his wife." And so, like, I don't care what people ask. If you ask me whatever you want, I've been faithful to my wife for 33 years, and I'll be faithful until she leaves me or one of us goes in the ground. That's just how I am. Out of respect for her too, but it's because how
Right.
I am. It matters to me. I made a commitment. I made a commitment to her that she could count on me no matter what.
Yep.
But there's lots of dudes out there that don't think that way. So don't dismiss them, is my long-winded point here.
No, it's true. And actually, at the end, there was a lot of shame because I thought I did something wrong. And then I left this career that I was doing well in, and it was really hard. And there were people in the community that knew how he was. And one of them, a gentleman came to me and he said, Toni, I know this was years later after I left. He came to me and said, Toni, I know this is happening again. Do you mind if I connect you with this woman? And this is by time he had moved on to the university.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely. And she and I got together. We had lunches several times, and I don't have many regrets in life, but this was one of them. I wish that I wouldn't have been so afraid to set my career on fire and would have outed him then because perhaps she wouldn't have gone through that
Yeah, I hear
because
you.
of me. So,
I
but
hear you. That's tough. That's tough. I mean, you can do shoulda, coulda, woulda all day long, but you don't have as much life experience in your 20s and 30s. And we all love to think we're all smart when we're young, but we're not. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's not that you're not intelligent. You just don't have any life experience to know how these things work.
yeah,
And as you get older, you realize, hey, some things are just non-starters. The minute they happen, it doesn't matter what's going on. You gotta blow it up because it's the right thing to do, and you're not going to be able to live with yourself if you don't. But at that stage in your life, you've married, you got kids, you got a house. Like there's real world responsibilities that are real, and you can't not factor them into your decision making. But I understand exactly what you're saying. That's tough.
yeah, yeah. But I've made a lot of peace with it now, and certainly writing about it helped. So, and talking about it too, and just now I have as you were saying, long in the tooth. We're getting and that's why I like getting older because I can look at it much differently and have compassion for that version of me, and I don't beat myself up anymore. And I unfortunately, to your point, I still see the sexual harassment play out, but in a different way. Not with me. That was the only experience I had, but still in sports, I have young women come to me and talk to me about what they're experiencing in their separate front offices and because it's not a huge HR world in sports, and
You
so
think?
yeah, yeah. So it's still a thing, and some of it is less intense. It's the jokes, or and you can't, but women can sense this stuff and they get uncomfortable and they come to me and say, what should I do? And so I'm glad, again, it goes back to being authentic and creating this space for women, especially in sports, to be able to at least confide in me. And there isn't really anything I can do, it's up to them, but to know that I believe you. If nothing else, I just want you to know I believe you, and hopefully they're not lying to me.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, you got to run it to ground to make sure they're telling you the truth, but it's better to give them the benefit of the doubt and explore it than it is to dismiss it, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, and so men, quit being such fucking dirtbags. Like, knock it
Thank
off.
you.
It's not that hard to tell if a woman is attracted to you or not. And if you make some type of advance, I was like the work thing too. I had a kid that worked for me and he was a young, good looking kid. And this is just an office environment, but it's a small town. So he was kind of making his way through all the attractive ladies in our office, whatever, I could care less. Like, that's your thing, that's your thing. As long as it's consensual and everybody's okay, fine. Well, I started to hear grumblings about people from women at work, not that he was being a harasser, but like they just kind of got tired of his act. And so I called him into my office and I said, hey, listen, this is a nickel's worth of free advice that I'm going to give you right now. So there's 9 billion people in the world, and about half of them are men and half of them are women. That means there's 4.5 billion women in the world. If I were you, I'd eliminate the 300 that work here from the dating pool. Like, just don't shit where you eat, man. It's not that hard to figure out. And I know there's lots of office romances that blossom into long-term loving relationships. I'm not casting judgments on anybody. I've just never understood why it's the risk. There's so much risk involved in it, and relationships have a tendency to end poorly versus like the one I'm in. Like I always tell people, I'm kind of like the Elon Musk of relationships. I've had a fucking awesome relationship with the best person I've ever met in my life for 30 plus years. So if you want business advice and I give you some and Elon gives you some, you should listen to Elon. But if you want relationship advice and I give you some and Elon gives you some, you should listen to me because
Yeah,
like I've got that part down. But yeah, look, the other thing too is people want to decouple the two. Like, well, men and women, look, men like women. Men are always going to like women, and women
yeah,
like men, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either of those things. But there's a level of decency with which you should treat another human being, and it's not that hard to figure out what that is. So,
exactly.
men, quit doing that shit. Just stop. Quit being
Thank
pervs.
you.
Yeah,
Quit being pervs. Like, seriously, quit.
it's really not as hard as we make it sometimes.
I know. I know. It's like the more times I've said "don't shit where you eat," a million times, and a lot of times I have to talk to the interns on my staff because, hockey players,
Oh, sure. He's going to the big time. I'm going to marry at the ground floor, and my life is set.
yeah. And I laugh because I'm like, do you know how much they make in our league?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like even like shit, even at the AAA level on a two-way contract, when you're down, you're not making shit. When you're up, you're making bank
Right.
if you're on the roster. But when you're down, you go back to the minor league scale, and it ain't much.
Mm-mm. No, it's not. But boy, talk about being naive and in your 20s, I just say, listen, we don't shit where we eat here. So,
For what it's worth, that's how I suckered my wife into marrying me. So I was on a baseball scholarship and I was pre-med in college. So she was trying to invest on the ground floor in either a professional athlete or a doctor. And now I sell groceries for a living. So she claims the bait and switch quite a bit. I can't say she's wrong.
she got wrong on both. But hey, good for you, Joe.
I was over I was over two. I failed upwards in other areas, but
Yeah.
so you wind up with this shitty experience, but you learn a lot from it. So I'm always a big fan of, okay, it happened. What can we learn from it? And how do we make ourselves better from it? Which sounds like the approach that
Hmm.
you took. You've got this little 4 month cushion. You do your application. You're applying for, I think you said a boutique
Hmm.
in Kalamazoo. So that must be where they sell the pink flannel in Kalamazoo, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yep. That's where
And
you find it.
they say you're way overqualified and they talk you into going to work for the Wings. So
Yeah.
tell me about your experience when you first got to the Wings. You don't know a thing about hockey, but you start there. What's it like?
Yeah, I would describe this first 3 years of my role as unconscious competence. Like if I were to give it a label, and when I did a TEDx on this a year and a half ago, and part of the story I tell is this one that I'm about ready to share with you, which is I didn't know what I was doing, but I had enough experience at this point between the two jobs that I had and the career I'd built for 15 years to run off my gut instinct. So I'm like, if I don't know how to do this, I bet you there are people that do. And so what I started to do was forge relationships with the other Tonys, the other GMs of the teams in our league. And so I started with our division and then I worked my way out. And I would go there. I didn't pick up the phone. I just said, I'm coming to Cincinnati. I'm coming to Fort Wayne. I'm coming to Indianapolis. I'm going to Brampton near Toronto. And I just started visiting and I would try and take in a game while meeting with the staff. And and they each operate differently. And so while we're competitors on the ice, we are not off the ice because we're all over the country and into Canada. And they were more than happy to welcome me in. And then I took what I would learn in these different markets and I would bring it back to Kalamazoo. And this is my second leadership pillar, which is innovate. And I would make it fit if I felt like that it was a seedling of a good idea that would work in our community, I would make it fit for Kalamazoo because Kalamazoo is not a normal market for a professional sports team, in case you were wondering or anyone listening is wondering. Our population is 75,000 for Kalamazoo proper.
Yeah.
Most professional sports teams are in much bigger cities. So
What does your arena hold?
our arena holds 5,100.
Yeah.
So, and again, we're privately owned. And we're 52 years old this year. We only exist because of the benevolence of two families over the 52-year period that individually owned it and put their own hard-earned money into this. It's for the community. Our franchise does not make money, and it has been for the community. And so it's ran from a business perspective. For now, it's about ready to change a year and a half very differently.
Yeah. And so I asked how many. So think about that. You got to get 8% of the total city to come to your game to sell the thing out.
Exactly.
Right.
And they like back in 1974 when it first opened, they were because across the street was a Ford plant.
Mm.
And so people with the blue collar workers would pour out of there and they would go right to a K-Wings game. And this was a different time in hockey in the 70s. And so no helmets. The guys are smoking cigarettes on the bench and drinking Miller High Life. And, it was just a,
A lot of
real.
Fu Manchu mustaches. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the pictures are amazing. But yeah, it was and then it peaked like in the 80s and the franchise changed and affiliations changed and then it kind of started to fall off in the 90s and anyway, so I mean 52 years is a long time. We are the fourth oldest minor league hockey franchise in US history.
Man.
Most don't last this long.
Yeah, that's wild. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and the Winterhawks are there, which is junior majors. So that's a route guys go. They could wind up on the wings after they're done at the Winterhawks. So those are like 16 to 19-year-old guys that are good hockey players, have chosen not to go to college. So for those that don't know, if you're trying to go pro in hockey, there's two routes. You can go major college, Division One, like a University of Minnesota or Boston College or whatever. There's lots of places out there. Or you go the professional track, which usually starts with junior majors, and then
Mhm.
you go into these feeder leagues after you've been drafted, or if you don't get drafted and you want to pursue your career even further and keep playing. So, shameless plug, if you've never seen a hockey game live, you are fucking missing out. It is one of the few sports that does not translate anywhere near the actual experience on television because you cannot see how fast these guys are moving. You cannot see how hard they're hitting. You cannot see how big they are and how graceful they are while still being just like tough guys. I mean, I remember the example I use is when the Blackhawks won one of their cups. Brian Seabrook was one of their defensemen, and they were late in the third period of the game that was going to clinch the cup, and the Wings were or the yeah, no, the Blackhawks. Sorry. The Blackhawks were up. Sorry, all Chicago fans. I did not mean to conflate the Detroit Red Wings with the Chicago Blackhawks. I
Ugh.
know the difference. Slip of the tongue. Don't come for me. Um, but Seabrook gets hit in the teeth with a slap shot with about 6 minutes left. And this game's over. They're up like 5-1 or something. Seabrook goes back into the locker room, gets a Novocaine shot, picks his teeth up, goes back in the locker room, puts his teeth on ice, and goes back out. He didn't even miss a shift because he didn't want to miss the celebration. So, like, I know people love to talk about the NFL, but you're not going to find tougher guys than hockey players. It's a great sport to watch live.
No,
I think it's way better to watch live.
I totally agree. And that's one thing AI is not going to take. So it's live sports. And I would agree with you. And as someone that I respect sports, but I wouldn't say I was a sports fan. Like football was on in my house growing up because my dad loved the Detroit Lions. He
Sure.
loved the Detroit Tigers. Like we would go to sporting events, but it's not like I was clamoring to watch. I would watch the Red Wings, especially when they were winning the Stanley Cup. I believe that was the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. And so I knew enough to be dangerous, but I had a lot to learn. And so one of the things I'll add to this conversation about the developmental part is so we're in the ECHL, the Kalamazoo Wings are, which used to be known as the East Coast Hockey League. It doesn't stand for that anymore because after 40 years it's coast to coast now in teams in Canada. And so we're affiliated at the American Hockey League, which is the AHL, which is also minor league hockey, just for those who follow hockey or don't, but it's still considered minor league hockey, even though they're the mid tier. And then there's the National Hockey League, which is NHL. So our affiliation now, it used to be with the Red Wings when we first opened in the 70s, hence the Kalamazoo Wings.
Sure.
But that changed over the years. And we've had several different affiliations, but over the last few years, it's with the Abbotsford Canucks and the Vancouver Canucks. And so, and Abbotsford won the Calder Cup last year for the American Hockey League, which was pretty cool. So we had some really talented players that would bounce back and forth between Kalamazoo and Abbotsford, which is a haul, by the way. If you're that player that's got to travel all the way over. So,
Oh my gosh.
just for some knowledge for people who are understanding the world of hockey.
Yeah, and so I love your approach to collaboration. Like it's so important. And it's interesting to me because I know when I was younger, I thought if I was competing with someone, they were like my sworn enemy, and there was absolutely no opportunity for me to be friendly with them, to learn anything from them. Uh, any of that type of stuff. And that's the exact opposite of what's actually true. And when you think about it from a sporting perspective, so let's say you own the Kalamazoo Wings, who do you play? Like, who do you play if everyone else folds up shop, right? Like, you
Right.
want the other teams to be successful and stick around because it's really good for you. Um, when you reached out, did you get any pushback, or did you find that most people were super willing to meet and talk to you to help you?
Oh, everyone has been super helpful. It was kind of a novel idea back then too, which just makes me chuckle because I'm like, they were so welcoming. They're like, yeah, please come. They wanted to share and they're particularly proud of their franchise, regardless if they were performing well on the business side or on the ice or not, because you when you're working in sports in the front office, that it is a grind, especially in minor league sports. So whatever they had built, they were really proud of, and to have someone come in and want to spend time with them, what a compliment. And I'm like, yeah, well, you guys are teaching me. And so I would extend that out even. And over the years, I've done what I call field trips, and I will bring my team. If the Kalamazoo Wings are playing them, we will go on the road, the front office together, so my staff could learn too. And so I've done several of those over the 11 years, and I encourage others. And through the talks I give, go find the experts in whatever it is you want to learn how to do. And that's been a moral of my story because I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to do a lot of things I've accomplished.
Exactly.
So, this growth mindset and this natural curiosity I have has helped me be a better leader. Now I'm more intentional about it as I've gotten older, where it's like I read my age every year and fostering relationships outside of the ECHL and in other sports and attending conferences and all these different things I do, but I'm not doing it alone. I bring along my team or I bring along my peers or I create resource groups, which we may or may not talk about today for women in sports, but there's a lot of things we can do it's not a competition. The only time we're competing is when we play each other. And that's really the teams. It's not the front office because we're selling tickets. We're revenue.
Yeah, and so like that's a great example. I run grocery stores, and so when I walk through another grocery store, what I noticed early in my career, and that's been by like I started when I was 19, so like I've been doing it forever. And very, very common to walk through other grocery stores, say, what are they doing? How's it working? Et cetera, et cetera. I noticed there were a lot of people that tried to pick things apart, like, oh, their floors are dirty, or oh, they've got holes on aisle seven, or whatever. Okay, great. We can all see that. What I wanted to know is what are they doing better than me? Because
Yes,
I might be able to incorporate that into my operation. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Well, what are they doing that's working that I could learn from? Because our business is exactly like you described. It's a grinded out, low margin business, and it's entirely on volume. The more people I can get into the store and the more items I can get in their carts, the better chance I have of making somewhere between 1% and 3%, which is like the goal at retail in grocery. So I want to know what they're doing well. So like when you go, you can talk to people about what's your ticket sales approach? Do you do calls? Do you do online? Like what how do you guys do it? What's your marketing approach? What type of promotions do you do to try to drive people in? You can learn from all that stuff if you're willing to ask questions and take some notes, right?
100%. And that is how I built the Kalamazoo Wings back. I said it would take me 3 to 5 years, and it literally took me. So we'll do some fun little math. I walked in the doors in the winter of 2015, and at 5 years, we were at the winter of 2020.
Oh,
And
geez.
then, so you know where that went.
Oh
And that
God.
is when the world changed. And so it was the biggest season. It took 5 years to climb that Mount Everest. And we were at the summit. And then boom, everything shut down in March of 2020. And we didn't play hockey for 16 months after that.
Oh, that's a whole nother episode. So I for what it's worth, I was literally standing in front of my television screaming at it to the point my wife was like, you got to calm down because I never once saw a shred of proof for anything that they were talking about that led to all these draconian measures that
Yeah.
upset our society. And the thing that made me the most angry about it, I guess there's two things really. First, it was very, I knew it, but I hated, I would have loved to have been wrong about this. People are sheep, and if you scare them a little bit, they'll do any fucking thing you tell them to because they're afraid. And
Yep.
that's what I love about your stories. You haven't been afraid to take chances. You haven't been afraid to go down different roads and look at what you've built because you were willing to do it. Was it always awesome? No, it was not. You've already shared some tough experiences. Did it always go exactly the way you thought? No. but you're in a much better spot now than you were because you continued to take action and you weren't afraid of things. It didn't stop you. Better way to say it is it didn't stop you, even if you were afraid, it didn't stop you from doing it, right? I love that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been proved wrong about that, but it was so many people were sheep. And like I hear all this Nazi talk about Trump supporters. And look, I've never voted for President Trump. I've voted for the libertarian candidate the last 5 or 6 elections. I'm diehard libertarian at heart. But this whole Nazi talk, if you want to know what a Nazi looks like, those are the people that were calling the hotline saying, my next door neighbor's having a party and I counted 10 people there. That's what Nazis did. That's what Nazis did. If you were in that crowd, you need to look in the mirror before you're hurling invectives at other people, you know?
Yeah, it was an odd time, and to the credit of our owner, he was like, "We're keeping you all employed," and in Michigan we could not gather, we could not play professional hockey for. I worked from home for 18 months, and but there was so much work to do behind the scenes because when we did reopen from a league level, and I have a whole other responsibility on the league side as a governor for the team, we
Mm.
had to rebuild what hockey looked like when we reopened in the 21-22 season. And that what an amazing learning experience. It did not feel like it during the time. It was hard because you're trying to bring 5,000 people indoors and social distance, even then, like, and wear masks. And that first game back, that home opener in October of 2021, we did a salute to Scrubs night. And we partnered with our hospital here and we did K-Wings mask giveaways and hand sanitizer and all these things. And I mean, I hate even thinking, it was just such a hard experience. And, but I became a better leader for it. Every single hard thing that I've done, regardless if it came my way because I did something to do it or it was uncontrollable by me, I've come out the other side and I say literally, I'm growing, I'm growing, I'm growing.
Yeah, it's great to have a mantra like that to remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. I forgot. I didn't even connect the dots with Comrade Whitmer shutting things down. She was particularly militant during
Hmm.
that whole thing. She was really looking to make a name for herself, wasn't she?
She sure was, and it was painful. I mean, I me personally, I don't mind. I can actually adapt pretty well to most situations. And so I just took that routine that grounds me and I just did it at home. And similar to you, I really enjoy my husband and we have a beautiful life and very happily married. So we had a lot of fun together. I look at it as a positive time for the most part, outside of, not knowing forever and ever, because you remember well, in Michigan, they staged what could come back
Yeah.
online. And sports, of course, was towards the end, especially indoor. So,
Yeah. And then the second thing that was really disappointing to me was the complete and total disregard for what we were doing to children during that period, keeping them out of school and interrupting their social lives and their education. Not to mention, how many people were we sending home to abusive? Like, I know more than just men can be abusive. Let's be honest, it's usually men. To an abusive father or someone fighting substance abuse, kids that weren't eating. We didn't give a shit. We didn't give a shit about those kids. And it's fucking terrible. It's a crime. It's a
yeah.
crime what we did to those kids.
Yeah, and mine were older, but still in school. One was graduating high school, and the other two were still middle school, high school. And the learning from home, and I mean, luckily it was, they were used to technology and things, but it was hard. I mean, it was really. I totally agree. Well, hopefully we will never relive that again. But I've learned enough to know never say never because all things get fucked up for all kinds of weird reasons.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth? Okay, I'm done. I'm done with my COVID rant. I got it off my chest. I feel better now. Thanks for the therapy. Um, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics between men and women in sports. So it's interesting to me because you had a really bad experience where you were the subordinate, and now you're the leader, but there's still that dynamic there. What have you noticed about that in your time, at least in professional sports, being in the chair you're in now?
Yeah, from the professional side, like my staff and the players and all that, there's been a lot of respect both ways. I haven't run into any challenges, but a lot of that comes from working for individuals or being in situations where I'm like, I don't want to act like that. Like I
Mm.
had some pretty shitty examples. I've had some good examples too, like my very first boss in banking. I'll give him a shout out, Tom Danielson. He's just salt of the earth and amazing man. And so here's the other thing though. I've never had women mentors or bosses. And
Mm.
so this is it's kind of interesting, which kind of leads later in some of the stuff I've created within sports in our league. But yeah, I wouldn't say it affected it other than I knew what I didn't want to be because of what I've experienced.
That's great. So, it's funny because we we talk about leadership. Like our whole podcast is trying to get people to live a life of meaning and purpose. You have to find out what that means for you. I can't tell you what it is. But one of the ways that you do that is by showing leadership of yourself, leadership of other people. And I always say leadership is actions, which is what you just described. Leadership isn't reading books. Leadership isn't watching videos. It's great to do all those things so you can learn, but if you don't take them and put them in practice, you're just whistling Dixie. And so I love the way you talked about that you modeled the way you wanted people to behave around you, and they would model it back. And that's a great approach from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and I believe in that. And one of my strengths is execution. So if I say I'm going to do it, I do it. And that also fosters trust. And now there's always two sides to that coin because if I say I'm going to do something that might not be good for me, I do that too. So but I also know how to pull myself out of it if I choose to, because my North Star is about purpose and meaning. And no matter what age we are, it's so important to have that purpose and meaning because that's a part of I get really passionate about health span and lifespan and living a long life. And that's the key is having meaning and purpose.
Yeah, it's what gets you out of bed in the morning. On that health span, lifespan thing, you made a decision several years ago to abstain from alcohol. Talk a little bit about what led you to that.
Oh boy, Tony Party Time. She led me there. So that's what my friends used to call me. And so I'm an outgoing person. I love to be around people. It gives me energy. Well, what also gives me energy is alcohol. And I was very much a take it or leave it drinker. I didn't drink really in college. In high school, I didn't either. Just wasn't, I was too busy. Like I was cheerleading and going to school and working. I was always very driven. And it wasn't until my later 20s where I was in a marriage that I w really wasn't happy, and not for any specific reason. It's just I married young, and it just wasn't the right match. And so we parted ways, and I was 29 years old. I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I all of a sudden became a part-time parent and because of a shared custody arrangement. And I had 1 week on, 1 week off. Well, I didn't know what do you do with that. And so I would work and it became a work hard, kind of play hard. And I picked up another hobby of doing triathlons. And boy, when you've done a triathlon or you're working, I was running half marathons and full marathons. I did this all through my 30s and all the way up to full Ironmans as a hobby. But I also picked up an addiction to alcohol along the way. And I'm not afraid to say that. What I don't use is the term alcoholic because that is not recognized by the CDC. And now some people are all for that label and good for them. I'm not here to judge, but it's a health and wellness decision for me, and I choose to live alcohol free. So in October of 2020, when the world had been shut down and I had this unknown window of time where we weren't playing hockey, but I was still working from home. My schedule was much different. I thought, you have an opportunity right now, Tony. You can either drink your face off or you can work on this. And I chose to work on this. And I found a different pathway because I had tried AA, I had tried other treatment programs. And so I picked up a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace and I read it and it was a more modern approach to choosing to remove alcohol from your life, but it was empowering. It was a choice. It wasn't like I was broken. And it resonated with me. And so I started with 30 days. I'm like, I think I'll go 3 more weeks and then I'll finish out the year. And I'm 5.5 years sober now, alcohol free. And I I am immensely proud of myself because it is one of the hardest things I've ever done in a pro alcohol culture. And I decided to quit this time out loud. And this is very stigmatized. And my mission, one of my North Stars, one of my meetings is to chip away at this stigma because it is bullshit. And so I talk about it quite openly. And my book, I open up with when I got arrested in 2016 at the beginning of my book, and to talk about this and my pathway to changing my behaviors.
Mm. Yeah, we had a guest on. Her name's Laura Nelson, and she runs a program or a organization called Sober Life Rocks.
I know Laura, she's a friend.
Oh, you do? Really?
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
she was.
spoke at her conference. Yeah.
We had a great conversation with her. And yeah, it's interesting. So I'm fortunate that I've never had a proclivity. I've never been drunk in my life. I've probably consumed the amount of alcohol in 6 beers my entire life. And I've never touched an illegal drug in my life. That's not good or bad. It's just a statement of fact. It's not a judgment. I don't think I'm better than anyone because of that. I don't have a natural proclivity towards those things. Now, if you put a piece of chocolate cake on a table, I'm gonna have a real hard time walking by that chocolate cake without picking it up and eating it. So we all got our shit to deal with. And everyone loves to be judgmental if you don't sin or have the same issues that they have. They want to feel superior because they don't struggle in that particular aspect. But we all struggle. So why don't we just be fucking decent to each other when they're struggling? When someone's struggling, help them out a little bit. All you gotta do is listen to them. Like it doesn't take more than that. All you got to do is listen.
Exactly. Yeah, Laura's phenomenal. Sober Life Rocks. They had a conference just this past January called Amplify Sober Voices. It was the inaugural conference. I was honored. They asked me to speak at it. And I talk about, doing what I do in pro sports. So I'm a minority being a white woman as a GM for a men's professional team and as a non-drinker.
Oh yeah.
And so it is, and there's that rebel, this, which the title of my book is Rebellious Success, because I am not afraid to color outside the lines, and I know I am not the only person that feels this way, male or female. So I feel like if I can inspire one person to be like, if Toni can talk about this, so can I. And the difference between talking about it doesn't have to be like I decided on day 80 to out myself on social media because I love a good loophole. So if I don't go telling on myself, then I will find a way to go back to Toni Party Time because she thought she was amazing. Most people found her annoying, but not me.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you, I am a fucking hell of a salesman. I am really good at selling, and that's something I talk about on the podcast. If you want to get compensated at a higher level than your skills suggest you should get, become a salesperson because most people aren't willing to go through that. The other thing I say is when you become a really good salesperson, you'll learn to sell without selling. Because what you do is solve other people's problems. They don't even know you're selling them something. You're solving their problems. I always pull out a picture of my wife when people ask me to prove that I'm a good salesman. I got that woman to stick around for 33 years. I'm a hell of a salesman.
You know what you're
That's
doing.
that's exactly right. Exactly right. But it's amazing to me how much as a non-drinker, I always just drink Coke Zero. That's all I drink. So
Mhm.
I'll go, I do just like you. I'm at an executive level, and there's always a cocktail hour before a dinner. There's always a cocktail hour before an event. Always.
Always.
And I just go with my Diet Coke. It's amazing to me how many people try to get me to drink
It's
or assume I'm a recovering alcoholic because I'm not drinking. Like it couldn't just be a choice. How can you just not drink?
well,
Like
and that
this. Here's my Coke. That's how I do it.
Well, and that's so I started a coaching business. Like I said earlier, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I use this time to start a business to help other people reduce or remove substances. I got a certification. And because if I'm going to help other people, I want to make sure I have credentials to do so. And there are people, believe it or not, I know you'll believe this because you don't drink, but there are people that don't like their relationship with alcohol who only drink once a month or once
Mhm.
a year and want to feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, who cares what's in my glass? But they don't because our culture is just so like, why aren't you drinking? Oh, do you have a problem? Oh, tell me your story. Or, you know, and so I help people that don't. I wish I could have drank like that. Like I would have been like, that would have been like, what about it? That would have been a great North Star for me, but that wasn't my story. So
Yeah, sometimes if I'm just not in the mood to explain it and I don't really want to talk to the person much more, and I use this in a lot of instances or different situations. I was like, how come you're not drinking? I'll tell them my parole officer told me I couldn't. Just like that. And like it shuts the conversation down instantly, like, oh shit, parole officer. I don't want to get into all that. This guy looks kind of scary.
I
That'll
tell them
end it pretty quick.
I tell people I cashed in all my drink tickets or so, it depends on who asks me,
Yeah.
and most people don't. And one of the things that held me back for a long time was I was afraid of what people would think. And now I'm just like, why do I care? Like,
Yeah.
and that's where I got to. I got to my tipping point and I did this for me, all me. It was nothing to do with anyone else in my life. And I knew that if I quit drinking, I'd be a better mom, wife, boss, friend, daughter. And so I did this 100% for me. And there were times where I'm like, oh, this, because I rewired the reward center of my brain through all that drinking. And you cannot unwire that. So you got to create new neural pathways. And you really have to strip down your beliefs around the perceived benefit of alcohol. And so I did that work and it was not easy, but like I said, I've done some hard things and this is in the probably the best thing I've ever done that was hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations and best wishes on continued success on that. I'm sure you'll be successful at it because
Thank
you're a grinder, which leads me to my next point. Because you're a grinder, you have a big job, you got lots of cool stuff, but that wasn't quite enough. So you've got you got all sorts of other stuff going on. You do keynote speeches, you've got a coaching business, you've established this women's group within the sports area, and you've written a book. So I want to talk about all those things. You pick which one we talk about first.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the speaking. I so Western Michigan University, I mentioned earlier, is my alma mater. They called me about 3 years into me operating the K-Wings, and they said, Toni, we'd love for you to come and speak to some of our classes. And I'm like, I'm happy to. What do you want me to talk about? And they're like, oh, it's up to you. What we really want to know, though, is how you turned it around. And I kind of chuckled because I was at that 3 year point, and while it was moving in the right direction, I liken it. I always joke that I was pulling the Titanic out of the iceberg. And at that point, I had the boat floating, but we weren't going in any direction quite yet. So one day I sat down at my desk and I'm like, okay, how did I do this? This unconscious competence came. And I'm like, well, let me piece this together. So I wrote out 6 things, which became my leadership pillars, and 2 of which I've talked about today. And I wrote down these 6 things. So I started to speak in these classrooms. And I mean, like, I'm a big believer in servant leadership and not getting paid for every single thing that I do. And because that just doesn't sit well with me and my integrity. That's just me. So I would speak and speak and speak, and I got asked to keep doing it more and more. And then as my journey began to change more, when it layering in the women in sports piece, and then quitting drinking, and I would be asked to be on bigger stages, and it was just last year I said it's time that I get paid for this.
Yeah.
And so I started positioning myself that way because as confident as I am, it was hard. It's like, okay, how do you go from saying, yeah, I'll speak to, yeah, I'll speak, but this is what I'm worth. And so I made that transition. So far, it's been great. And speaking of that, I was at a conference speaking, and it was the first at the National Sports Forum. It was the first ever all female panel that I was moderating in front of 1,000 people. And I'm sitting there, and the moment you could feel that something was changing.
Hmm.
There was a shift in the room. And I was like, I want to keep this going. I want to do more. And so I got off that stage. I created a podcast called Women in dot dot dot. I was originally going to do it about women in sports, but I took the sports out. I put the dots in. I have men and women on my podcast. And the whole impetus of the podcast is to tell the story of my guests, but also who are the women in their lives that helped them get to be that person they are today.
Yeah.
So I started that, which then led to a conference that I created called Empower Her. That my next conference is coming up. This is second year, March 13th and 14th in Kalamazoo. I've been asked to have it in other states and I've turned it down because I want it in my hometown. I'm proud of and bring women in all over the country to help inspire them both personally and professionally. Um, and then that led, I did a TEDx, and then that led to the book. And I've always had a book in me. I've known it for a very long time. I just didn't know on what. And so I took the framework of my TEDx and reshaped it in my leadership pillars and reboxed it, I should say, and workshopped it into my Tony truths because I love alliteration. And I tell stories of my life, the not so pretty parts, and how through behavior change I've been able to be successful. But I give people the roadmap, the blueprint. It's not just, oh, here's Tony's memoir. She's awesome. No, I love memoirs, but I didn't want mine to be that. So it's like a three-legged stool. It's part memoir, part personal development, and part leadership. And so that is how it all came to life over the last 5 years. And of course, I'm coaching clients one-on-one and in group settings and things of that nature too.
Sure. Yeah, you just don't sleep, right? No big deal.
I love sleep. It is a friggin' hobby for me. I sleep 7, 8 hours a day. And Joe, if I can get a nap, like today I got home and I'm like, I've got this podcast interview coming up. I need a 20-minute nap. And I put myself into bed.
For what it's worth, I took a nap before our podcast as well.
Yeah, because
I
this
need,
takes energy.
yeah, look, I'm a grinder. There's no two ways about it. And if you're going to grind, you need your mind to be right. And the best way to get your mind right is with solid sleep. It's by sleep and nutrition are the two best things you can do for your mind.
100%. And I mean, as an aside, I'm really passionate about brain health because my mom passed from Alzheimer's
Mm,
last year. And so I am obsessed with all things with the brain and sleep. Our culture sometimes sleep when you're dead. Well, that is bullshit. So I love sleep. Now, I'm really one of the people ask, like, how do you do all that? And first off, I don't do all the things at all the same time
or
during
to
the
the
day.
same extent, right? Or to the same level.
Right, because there's in season for hockey, there's off season for hockey. It's cyclical. The schedule's funny too, because it's not like I'm working 9 to 5 every day. If we have a game, I'm not coming into work till later in the afternoon because we're there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And there's weekends, so there's time off during the week. You're able to, well, and I should say it this way, if people would strip out some of the stuff in their life that adds zero value, like drinking, or maybe watching a shit ton of TV, you're amazed at how much you give yourself back in time. Drinking alone, if someone were to step back, I gave myself on average about 800 hours back a year.
Wow.
When you think about thinking about drinking, actively drinking, and recovering from drinking. So you can do a lot with 800 hours.
Yeah, I people love to put together to-do lists. I always when I took over, I was kind of a Mr. Fix It in my career. So I would go in, fix something, and they'd take me and move me somewhere else. So, okay, now this is a problem, go fix that. Which I love. Like it's not a complaint. I loved it and I learned so much doing it. I'm kind of like you. If I did just one vertical, if I was just in sales or just in accounting or just in procurement, I probably would have burned out a long time ago. I love new and I love figuring out and solving problems. But one of the very first things I did was, okay, I want everyone to get a piece of paper out, and that's how old I am. We used to use paper and pens to do these kind of exercises, not Excel, not a Google Doc where we all shared it, but I want you to write down 5 things you do that you don't understand why you do them, because maybe we shouldn't do them anymore. I took over a group one time. I worked at a place, and it was back when we had the old green bar reports. Remember the dot matrix printers with the green bar
Mhm.
printout?
Oh, yeah.
So there were so many of these reports that we had a van that took them from the printer room and brought them over to our building. And a bunch of us would get there at 6 in the morning, tear down the reports, organize them, and then we could all go do our jobs. Well, I came in as a buyer, so I came in at kind of a mid-level position, and I excelled at that job. And so people would come and ask me, how do you work these reports? And I said, I use these 2 reports. They're like, what about these 10? I said, I literally throw them in the fucking recycling bin when I get them, literally. And they said, really? I said, yeah, I think there's a bunch of reports being printed that nobody pays attention to. So I eventually took over this group and I said, I'm going to quit printing all these other reports. I'm just going to stop. I'm not going to ask anybody. I just did it.
Mhm.
And I didn't hear a word for a month. And I finally got a call from like the galactic commander of the group, hey, where's this report? And I said, yeah, we didn't print it. He said, why did we quit printing it? I said, well, I quit printing it a month ago. Why are you calling me now? Like, you're not looking at it. I'm like, what do you get from that report? Let's look at this a different way. What's the information you're looking for that comes out of that report? And I'll figure out a way to provide it to you that doesn't involve all of this waste. And we literally hired a driver to drive this shit around full time.
Oh
And
my God.
no, it's crazy. And so, to your point, if you look at things that aren't adding value or aren't making you productive, quit doing them. Like, just quit doing them, man.
Yeah. And it might take time to shrink that down. Like TV is another example I use. I've been it's one way that I relax, but it's also like, okay, you don't need to watch however many hours people are watching it is insane. So it's something you can look at. And so I track it. I just say I try to watch an hour or less if I'm going to watch it. And I track my goals. I have a 1 year vision worksheet that I do at the beginning of every year, and it's in 6 different categories. And I set goals for myself, and I break it down monthly on a battle board. And I have some daily ones that roll up to the monthly, and the monthly rolls up to the yearly. And at each year, I do this, and I enjoy doing this. And it's not hard for me, but it gives me purpose and meaning. And I don't accomplish everything on there. Like this year, one of my goals is to get a fucking library card because I read so many fucking books and I don't need to be paying fucking Audible so much fucking money. But have I made it to the library, Joe?
No.
Fuck no.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's those little things too that get under your skin, isn't it? Like it's a library card. How hard could this be? Why haven't I done this yet? But I haven't.
I haven't. And that's okay. But what's on there that is important are my workouts. And
Yeah.
so it grounds me, and that is how I start my day. And so I work out 5, 6 days a week, but defining how I work out, it doesn't have to be, I used to like, well, you know this because you played college ball and like, just ground myself into dust. That is not how it is for me anymore. If I get 30 minutes in, cool. Like, good job, Tony, and lifting more weights and things like that. So it helps me have that North Star, have that meaning and purpose, know what I'm headed towards. And it's okay if all things don't get checked off the list.
Yeah, totally. And I love the way you talked about kind of adjusting your expectations as you move through life. Like back in the day, back before electricity, when I was a phenomenal athlete, like I used to squat with the offensive linemen in our football team. And I went to a D1 school. It wasn't little guys. I'd go over and like, hey, can I work in? And they're like, yeah, dude, we got 440 on here. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm working in. Then I don't have to fuck with all the plates myself.
Yeah.
And I would, do a set of four or whatever. And they'd be like, holy shit, where'd that come from? Well, I was a pitcher. That was the whole thing was core. And so I
Yep.
didn't do bench because back then they didn't know nearly as much about physiology as they do now and thought, oh, if you do a whole bunch of bench, then you're going to wreck all your connective tissues in your arm and it's going to ruin your arm and blah, blah, blah. So I busted my ass on the core stuff. I had a
Mhm.
resting heart rate of 32 at one point. Look, that ship has sailed. Those days are long gone. I am officially the old man. We have 3 sons and they're all adults now. And, we raised them to be their own men and think on their own and not just do something because someone else told them or not just accept something because someone else said it. Well, I'll be damned if they didn't apply all that shit to me too. And so now that, they'll say, hey, old man, back off. We got this. This is on us. And so, like, I got to listen to them. They're right. My days as the young buck are over. They're just
Right.
gone. So,
Same. Yeah, listen, I'm perimenopause, Joe. I get
totally, I get it. I'm living with that.
Yeah,
Um,
we're probably close. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, for sure. But my wife and I were talking the last week and said, we've got to age, but we don't have to get old. Getting old's a choice. And I'm refusing to get old. I'm going to age. It is what it is, but you have to reset your expectations. Am I going to squat 445 anymore? There's not a chance in hell I'll ever do that again. But I don't need to. I'm not trying to be a professional baseball player anymore. What I do want is my youngest son is getting married, and him and my future daughter-in-law are going to start having grandbabies. I want to coach them. I'm hoping they have a little girl so I can make her a female golfer. Like I can't wait to coach. And so it's funny because my daughter-in-law is from Puerto Rico, and I told her, I said, I'm waiting for my little empanadas, so you got to get to work right after you get married. It's like I got plans for them. Let's go.
Absolutely. I completely agree. My dad's 83 years old. He plays softball all around the country still on his ADU team, as I like to joke. And it's such an inspiration because I have watched him do live this way and live a very long, active life. And one of the mantras, we talked about mantras earlier, but another mantra I live by is moving water never freezes. And that really inspires me to keep being active, to keep my brain engaged. Like this is, I'm looking at the long term. And because I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair just waiting or a lazy boy the last 10 years of my life. That's not what I want. So I set my life up in a way that has intention and execute on it.
Yeah, look, there's a difference between being alive and living, and I want to live as long as I can. I don't want to be alive as long as I can. That's not
No,
interesting to me in any way, shape, or form.
no,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you had referenced your six pillars, but you didn't really, you said we talked about two of them. Can you go over the six pillars real quick?
Yeah. Go to the experts is the first one. Leadership pillar number two is innovate. Leadership pillar number three, we've talked about this a little bit, but is make mistakes. No, I didn't give it that late, but make mistakes is such a key leadership pillar because mistakes we are painful. And we tend to remember those and more than we do our successes. And so I actually celebrate mistakes a lot with my team. And they like to beat themselves up and like, no, because you're going to remember this. So, and some of the mistakes, they can range from anything from a spelling error to like we had to cancel a game once, like 2 hours before because of mistakes someone made. Oh yeah, that's a podcast for another day. But making mistakes is critical. Just
Totally.
depends on the variation of them. Um,
Okay.
Leadership pillar number four, actually, you were speaking to it earlier, which is ask for forgiveness rather than permission. With the reports you were talking about, like, fuck it, I'm not going to do these reports. And you didn't ask for anyone's permission, you just did it. And that speaks to your personality. It also speaks to mine. Now, every leader's not like that,
Right.
but what it does is that rebellion in us allows us, we think differently. We're not afraid to take risks, and there's value in that. And if you're someone that's like, I don't know how to relate to that, that's where I believe everyone, and I don't say this just because I am a coach, where everyone should have some type of coaching, whether it's executive coaching, life coaching, whatever, because you can't do this stuff on your own. You can't see yourself. To have someone outside you help you become what you want is pretty critical. So ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Leadership pillar number five is speaks to my leadership style and actually my parenting style too, which is macro manage.
Yep.
Nobody likes to be micromanaged. And I hire people that I trust unless they prove otherwise. So I say these three words to my staff nearly every day, which is I trust you. And that really came in handy when my mom was really ill because she lived here. So I was very stretched very thin, helping with everything. And I wasn't at work a lot, and it was in hockey season. And I knew my team had it. I had built the strategic plan. I have a very long tenured staff because of the culture I've built there. And so I didn't have to worry about a thing when I was in and out for several months on end and when she finally passed. And so, that macro manage has been really important because, like I said, people will be like, they'll double bird the way out if I was managing everything they did. And then the last thing is this is so overlooked in a lot of organizations, but it's have fun. Have fun. Like, as sometimes we get older, we lose that childlikeness, but and so I'm intentional about the fun we have in the office or the fun we have at home. And for me, fun is what you make it. Like certain things might be fun to me. Like I love watching true crime. That's fun to me, but others are like, that sounds terrible. Whatever. So there's lots of different examples, but especially in sports and entertainment, people are coming to our games to have fun.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we enjoy where we're fucking working? Yeah,
It's a novel concept.
it is. It is. So those are my six leadership pillars. You can apply them to your personal life, your professional life. I use those same exact pillars when I quit drinking. You can literally use them for anything. You just have to decide what it is you're working towards.
I love the macro manage one. I talk about micromanagement a lot when I'm dealing with other people, and I've mentored literally hundreds of people throughout my career. But there's only two reasons that you micromanage. One is because you're a control freak, and that's a problem. The other one is you don't trust the person you're micromanaging, and that's a problem.
Yeah,
So, like, if you don't trust them, get rid of them. Have the respect to have the hard conversation and say, we're not a fit. It's not going to work. Or invest in training and give them a chance, and if they don't make it, they don't make it. But the micromanaging's got to go. It's going to burn you out. It's going to piss everyone else off. And there's no good reason for doing it. Now, that doesn't mean it absolves you of the responsibility of knowing the minutia where it's important to know the
correct.
minutia. Those aren't the same thing. More than one thing can be true at the same time.
Yes. And that's a topic I want to write about. It's on my list because I put out a blog and write just like you do each week and talking about it's not either or, it's yes
Yep.
and really understanding that these things aren't black and white. There is a gray, and a lot of things live in the gray, and really changing people's minds around that, opening it up, expanding, and looking at things that way.
Yeah. At your you said you're doing your second annual conference. Is that through the Empower Her platform? Is that the
Yeah, so
branding?
that's the brand. It's called Empower Her, and it'll be March 13th and 14th here in Kalamazoo, and it's 36 hours. And I say that you get to go to bed, and it's not a marathon here. We're not up for 36 hours straight. But Friday night we have a VIP reception, and I'm reading the preface of my book, unveiling the cover of my book, and then allowing these women to network and get to know each other and start to build relationships. And then all day Saturday the 14th, we start at 8 a.m. We have keynote speakers coming in. I'm doing a live podcast of women in. My husband's going to be my guest, and he's going to be sharing how our dynamic, how you support a type A driven woman and
Yeah.
how that works in our household. Because I do rely on him a lot for a sounding board, for guidance, for like, I'm not doing this in a silo.
Sure.
And I get asked a lot, like, how are you so confident? How are you so courageous? And there's a lot of people in my life, and Josh is the closest one that I really value his opinion, but we always don't see eye to eye either, and that's okay. So we're going to have that conversation. And then I have a whole financial arm slated with a panel about entrepreneurship and how to handle finances, and then local banks coming in to help women understand like how to be financially independent. In my book, and I'll probably read a little bit out of this too. I talk about having a fuck you fund.
Totally. I totally get it, but explain it for those that don't.
Yeah, so I encourage, there are some women that don't manage their own money. Totally fine. Every relationship is different. I'm not here to judge that. But what I am here to say is if there's things you want to do in your life, have some money that's your money off to the side in your own bank account. So if you need to be like, I'm going to go to a conference, I'm going to go on vacation with my girlfriends, I'm going to go buy whatever ridiculous shoes I want to buy. Fuck you, I'm gonna go do it. So in a loving way, but because I love alliteration, I couldn't help but writing about a fuck you fund. So we talk about that too.
I,
And then we
I,
go to
to-
a
I
and
know
then
I totally love it because we actually have that in our relationship. So it's interesting because so my wife has never gravitated towards business, but she's definitely a type A personality. She likes to control things, she likes things done her way, et cetera, et cetera. And we settle on a division of responsibilities that works really well for us. So there are certain things in our life that I am the responsible one, and if we disagree, then we're going to lean my way, and
Mhm.
vice versa. There's things in areas of our life that if we disagree, we're going to lean her way because she's more qualified than me in those, and vice versa.
Right.
But you think about this, it takes a lot of trust for a woman or anyone. Like, let's flip it around. It doesn't matter that it's a woman. It tends to be women that make this choice, but it takes a lot of trust for a woman to say, I am not going to develop a career and the professional skills and abilities to provide for myself if this guy winds up being a dirtbag.
Yep.
And so we have a setup where there is a certain amount of money that I just transfer to a bank account that she owns, and like I can see it, but
Yeah.
I don't care what's like. I don't monitor it. It's not my business. It's hers, And that allows her to do whatever the hell she wants to the fuck you fun. Now, I know where you're coming from. And like we've been married for 33 years. So
Yeah.
um it's such a good setup. And I always say, like, if we joke now and say, no, it's like there's too much water under the bridge. The only way this ends is with both of us in the ground. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The War of the Roses, but
Yeah, oh yeah.
if we ever got a divorce, it would rival the War of the Roses. I could tell you because we're both that kind of people. But there's no possibility it goes that way because we just refuse to ever let it get
Yeah.
to that point. But let's say it did. She is 100% earned half of everything we've built together over the last 33 years because I wouldn't have been a fraction of the bit successful as I have been without her. Like it just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't.
Exactly. And that Josh and I are the same way. And we married later in life. He's not my first. And so I've been married three times, and third time's a charm for sure. And this was it. I was like, this is it. Like we're in the and we are. I mean, when you've been married three times, you know, like this time around, I didn't see myself being getting married this third time, but it I was like, yeah, you could just tell it was different, and it is a true partnership, and supporting how I wanted to set things up, and we align on a lot of things, and especially core values and blending a family is no joke, and we've done that really beautifully, and we're really proud of that. But he fosters my independence and supports my dreams. And sometimes when he read my book, he said, he's like, "Gosh, Toni, he's afraid of the criticism that I might get because I'm talking about a lot of things about me that." Quite frankly, most people wouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
And I said, it just feels like a calling. I'm not doing it to get rich and famous. It just, I know it's in me and I know it can help other people. And I've always wanted to do this. And he's like, well, I'm going to support you. And it's pretty awesome to feel that way. But he also knows, like, I got a fuck you fund. So plus it's fun to say.
Totally. No, I totally love it. It's awesome. So your book is not published yet, right?
Correct. So it goes on pre-sale March 13th. So starting March 13th onward, you can buy it. You just won't be landing in your mailbox until August 11th.
Gotcha. Or now, will there be? We always include links. So, like, we'll include your website's got the information on your coaching and the Empower Her
Yep.
conference that you're putting together and your speaking. So we'll put that in the show notes. Will you have something for the book as well, or is it too early for?
Yes. So the book will be on there too as soon as the link is live in March. Website will be updated. But if people want to follow along, I have a newsletter too, or the email that I send out each week. They could subscribe to that, and there'll be updates in there. I also have a private Facebook community for Rebellious Success, so they could look that up. And I'm doing a lot of things early in that community because it is private, like revealing the cover and things to that group first, so they could join that too.
Nice. Well, if you include that link,
Mhm.
we'll put it in the show notes as well because we want to make it as easy as
Yeah,
possible for anyone in our audience to get in touch with you to take advantage of all this awesome stuff that you're offering out to the world.
absolutely.
Um, so one of the things I do, we cover a lot of territory on the Salty Ginger Talk podcast. I think we do a good job of that. I ask a lot of questions. We talk about a lot of topics. I feel like we cover a lot of ground, and I think that's good. But I don't ever want to miss something because I wasn't smart enough to ask the right question or I didn't bring up the right topic or subject. So as we wind down here, I always ask our guests, is there anything I haven't brought up or talked about that
Mhm.
you feel is really important that you want to talk about while we're in front of the audience? Could be anything. If you're good, that's fine too. I just don't want to miss an opportunity because I wasn't smart enough to see it.
I will share something. I'm like, oh, this could be fun. So it's not. It depends on which bio I send over, but I'm a two-time Guinness World Record holder.
Well, let's hear it.
And it's not just me. So the Kalamazoo Wings, we have set two Guinness World Records. We're in the book twice. One, what year was it? 2019 for the largest lightsaber battle on Star Wars night.
How
And
many
so
people?
4,000, I gotta remember the number, 4,366 or something like that.
That's major street cred for the Gen X crowd. I know you know that, but
Oh, and my employee who brought me this idea, he's like, Tony, we could set a Guinness World Record. I'm like, it sounded corny, but then I'm like, all right, let's look into it. And then when we paired it with Star Wars night, and then the lights, we gave away 5,000 lightsabers, and they were our colors for the K-Wings are red, white, and blue. So they were blue and red. The imagery from this, it is one of the coolest things I've seen and I've done a lot of cool stuff in hockey. This was phenomenal. So yeah, we're actually in the Guinness World Record. So we decided for our 50th anniversary season, we were going to set another world record at home opener. And to set a Guinness World Record, oh my gosh, it is hard. But we had the framework from when we did the first time. So we put everything in the motion and we set the Guinness World Record for the most waving light up phone fingers October of 2024. And so we're two-time. We are two-time and now I said that's it. I'm not doing this again.
oh my gosh, I love it. I lived in a town in New Hampshire called Keene, New Hampshire. And it's funny because we actually saw it on the news before we moved there. So I'm from Portland, Oregon originally, and I picked my family up and moved them 3,000 miles across the country for a job way back in 2001, 2002.
Mhm.
And we'd seen it about a year before because they set the Guinness World Record for the biggest, highest number of consecutively lit jack-o'-lanterns. They have this huge called the Pumpkin Fest every Halloween, and they literally build scaffolds all the way. The town looks exactly like Bedford Falls from It's a Wonderful Life. Like it's
Yeah.
got the main street, everything. It looks exactly like it. And they would build scaffolds and they would have the kids at the school carve the jack-o'-lanterns. People would bring them in from all over the place. And then one night they'd light them all up. And there became a competition. And I can't remember, there was a city that broke it, and then Keene took it back over. I don't know where it stands now. But that, yeah, that Guinness Book of World Records is no joke. Again, a Gen X staple, right?
Oh, totally. I remember as a kid wanting to be in the Guinness World Record. I don't know why I thought this was a record, but I used to collect erasers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so who would have ever thought that that would have come to fruition as an adult? But it's a fun little claim to fame. And Kalamazoo was just super proud of it. People bring it up to me still to this day.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, look, that book, I don't know why it had so much cachet, but
I
it sure
know.
did. Like, we love that book and all the stuff that you could do to get into it.
I know. It was crazy. So, and they still do the book and does it have as much street cred? I don't know, but we're done in Kalamazoo. We did our part.
I love it. You're in there twice. I
Yeah.
love it.
So yeah, there you have it. That's the last thing I don't know how you didn't ask about that, Joe. You couldn't dig that out somewhere.
Yeah, it's not hard to tell that I'm not that bright once you talk to me for a couple of minutes, so it's probably not shocking. Oh man. But Tony, look, so just to recap for the audience. So in addition to her job running the Kalamazoo Wings, Tony is a speaker, she is a coach, she's writing a book that you can buy on pre-sale March 13th, receive it in August.
Mhm,
She's got several groups, the Facebook group,
mhm,
the women's leadership group. She's got her own podcast,
mhm.
Women Who, right? It's called Women Who?
Women in dot
Women
with three
in,
dots.
sorry, Women in.
Yep.
And then the Empower Her forum that she's building, and there's another one in March. You got to travel to Kalamazoo to get there to participate. But I've heard good things about Kalamazoo, and I'm not just saying that. I actually know a couple people who have spent some time there, and they love it. Like it's a great
Yeah.
town.
It really is. And I am 100% biased, but it really is.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, Tony, look, I'm gonna because I got you on camera, I'm gonna make you commit to coming back on to the podcast at some point. You'd be a great candidate. We're doing a live stream Thursday nights, and when it works somewhere in the future, we did the third one. We got over 500 people watching it, which we don't do any promotion for it. Um,
Wow.
but it's really cool. We're building an audience there. You'd be perfect for that. I'd love to have you back maybe after your book comes out as well. But I want to rope you in while I can put some pressure on you.
You twist my arm, Joe. I'm in. Yeah, excellent podcast, excellent host, a great job in what you've built. And so I'd love to have you on Women In. So if
I'm
you,
in.
yeah,
Yeah. So
great.
I know
I'll
what you're
email you the stuff.
I was going to say, I know what your scheduling process is, but I'd love it because I love nothing better than to talk glowingly about my wife because I know in some point in the future, I'm going to fuck something up royally and I need a lot of evidence to prove that I'm worth keeping around, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So we will talk about her the whole time.
Exactly. Exactly. My mom's a neat lady too. So
Good.
yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. I know your schedule's busy and I'm really appreciative that we got these couple hours with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Look forward to doing it again.
Yeah. Until next time. Okay, guys, there you go. So, look, Tony's as advertised. We didn't oversell her in any way, shape, or form. She did an awesome job. Loved hearing about her story. So, from banking into the Chamber of Commerce, into professional sports, relationships along the way, and challenges she faced along the way. Talked candidly about needing to give up alcohol and how she went about that. Talked about her leadership techniques and her book that's coming out, the Empower Her platform that she's building. Awesome lady. Really fortunate to have her on. Really glad we're able to connect with her. And as you heard at the end, I roped her into coming back. Always take this chance when you've got the ability to nail people down when they're awesome like Toni is. And we did that. So, really looking forward to having her back either on the podcast or on the live stream or on both at some point. So, great job, Toni. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed our time together. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are there. Links to our social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us if you do that. I'm going to keep finding awesome people like Toni. I'm going to keep giving you tips and tricks that you can incorporate into your everyday life to build a life of meaning and value and purpose. It's all great stuff. You don't want to miss any of it. So make sure you catch our next episode. We will see you there.